Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another YouTube Live here on our channel, Nutrition Coaching in Life. My name is Lisa. I'm the head coach and owner of Nutrition Coaching in Life. I'm super excited to speak with you today. We love helping people lose fat, gain muscle, recomp their body, improve their relationship with food. And today I have the topic of over or underrated principles when it comes to training, or just anything that has to do with training. So yes, I'm excited to dive into it. Before I do so though, if you haven't grabbed our Happy Healthy Holiday Handbook yet, I highly recommend it because it is all the methods that we also use with our clients and of course with ourselves that help us maintain a lean body more or less year round, at least lifestyle leanness, instead of yo-yoing from social event or holiday to holiday. And yes, I would love for you to employ some of our strategies on your own as well. So if you would like our Happy Healthy Holiday Handbook, simply look in the description where I have put the link where you can download this wonderful handbook. But anyway, we are on to November. How crazy is that? Only 2 months left in 2024. I hope you are already making plans for Christmas and so on. And of course for 2025 as well. I have a little bit of an uncertain period of time coming up because I'm not entirely sure yet where I will be/go to next week even. I have received the notification that I need to leave Colombia at this stage, and I can't come back until January. So I am contemplating a few different destinations. So when I speak to you next week, I'm going to be somewhere else, probably somewhere warm, but I am not entirely sure where yet. But yeah, in any case, let's get into over and underrated principles or things that have to do with training. The first one, and you might not actually guess what, if I think that is under or overrated, but the first one I want to talk about is soreness, being sore in general. So after your workout, how good or how over or how underrated do I think being sore after training it is? I actually think being sore after training is underrated. It really depends on the circles where you're asking this question, but just generally speaking, I do think sometimes the proxy, like using it as a proxy for a good workout, is not necessarily applied in the right context, meaning that you are beating yourself up too much with too much new stuff all the time. And simply, if we're doing new stuff, of course, we're going to be more sore than if we use a stimulus that the body's a little bit more used to. So sometimes when your training program changes, you might notice that you're more sore than usual, even though you used not that much weight or whatever. So some people, they just vary all the time, go from one class to another and chasing that constant soreness, but more the soreness in the sense of unfamiliarity soreness, as opposed to the soreness that I'm referring to, which I think is underrated. And that is the soreness of simply muscular fatigue. So meaning hypertrophy inducing soreness. So if we are doing a resistance training program and progressively overloading that, and we have gotten a little bit closer to failure than we have in the past, perhaps, we are probably going to be more sore the next day or the following days than if we are taking it very cautiously in regards to the weight all the time. And so that is the kind of soreness I do think that we should chase, not all the time, not after every workout, and certainly not for all the muscle groups. So not like a systemic kind of soreness, but if you're like, oh, my biceps today, or I can really feel my glutes going up those stairs, I believe that is a good soreness to be chasing. Again, not to be confused with the soreness that simply comes from mixing things up too often, from simply beating yourself up with too many compound lifts executed in a poor manner, or where we're using that eccentric, where we're like really going through that eccentric movement really, really quickly. So for example, when I was doing CrossFit back in the day, I would be sore a lot, but not necessarily meaning that my muscles would grow or that I would have gotten a lot stronger, mostly because I was just really hitting my central nervous system a lot, because I was doing, let's say, like really heavy deadlifts paired with handstand push-ups, paired with running. And so just mixing it up all the time, and particularly things where the eccentric portion is gone through in a very quick, uncontrolled manner, that often induces a lot of soreness. So, for example, if on the deadlifts we're not bringing the barbell down in a controlled manner, but we're just like letting it rip our body down, or even with the pull-ups, if we're pulling up and then like falling back instead of controlling the movement back. Same even with GHD sit-ups, if we're going up and then like really quickly down just because we want to get that speed, but it's not controlled, then we're going to get more of that systemic fatigue and not that muscular fatigue that I personally think is a little bit underrated. So, okay, let's go into point number 2, and that is things like pre-workouts or fat burners, which of course you might add or might argue is more in the nutrition category, not so much in the training category. But I personally think pre-workout drinks are totally overrated. Even if we look at the ingredients, most of them just have a lot of caffeine in them, or taurine, or other kind of stimulus. So I just think, might just as well go and grab a strong cup of coffee, or green tea or mate or something like that. I personally think that some of the other ingredients, so sometimes it might be citrulline or arginine or something like that, that is most supposed to bring more blood into the muscle, that I don't necessarily think that it's worth the money for most people. Yes, perhaps if you're like at the very, 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 very top of the bodybuilding pyramid, and you're not just doing it as a gen pop person, and you're competing at a high level and you want to squeeze the very last out of whatever you can get, then this could be something that you might be like, it allows me to feel the pump better, and because of that, I can just push that one extra rep in this one workout session. But I believe most people are probably better off not to get too accustomed to just taking pre-workouts and that high caffeine dose, and then maybe even that tingling might be a little bit annoying. If you're not used to it, you feel like there's something crawling on your skin, or you're just getting red or whatever. So I don't think that they're really necessary or worth the money in most cases. So that was something I believe is overrated. Now going back to something that I believe is underrated, and I actually think that is the mind-muscle connection. So that is something that's kind of been thrown around more in the past, especially more in the bodybuilding space. But I think as of recent, we have almost moved too much towards the just functional training, just heavy training, and too far away from the, hey, do you even know what muscle you're supposed to be contracting right now? Do you even know how to engage this and that muscle, as opposed to the other one, which is giving you a headache for certain things? So this is just coming, or mostly coming, from a personal experience type of place, because I, for so long, did not know how to activate certain muscles and was literally just focused on executing the movement. And yes, with good form, yes, but I didn't really know which muscles were supposed to be working mostly. So for instance, things like deadlifts, I would almost exclusively pull from my back with a little bit of hamstrings and hardly any glute involvement. The glute is a wonderful large muscle group, or the glutes, maximus, medius, minimus, wonderful muscle group, strong. And if you use it properly, it can help you get so much better results, not just aesthetically in terms of having a nice overall physique, but also for lifts like the deadlifts. So taking a step back and learning how to engage the glutes has helped me. And although I'm not quite back to lifting the same weights that I was before, which I'm absolutely fine with, I feel much better. I don't feel as fatigued, and similar things, similar when it comes to like a pull down or pull up or whatever. So I used to almost only pull with my biceps and not using my lats at all. Yes, I was also using my rhomboids and my traps, but I would constantly have a tension headache because I would be using the wrong muscle groups to execute most movements. And so they were always overactive as opposed to letting some of the bigger muscle groups take over some of the strain. And so I truly think most people need to slow down their movements a little bit and truly feel like, oh, okay, this is what it feels like to feel a pump, or this is what it feels like to mostly activate now my adductors as well, as opposed to just the lateral side of the quads or the legs or whatever. So, like truly it just helps us get to know our body better as opposed to being so externally focused. And I've actually done a research recap on this just recently, where they were looking into internal versus external focus for strength and hypertrophy. And although the results were not like overwhelming in the sense of, whoa, what a difference, still one aspect showed that internal focus, so thinking squeeze, 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 as opposed to thinking just lift the weight up, was actually more helpful for hypertrophy, not for strength. So yes, I believe mind-muscle connection is absolutely underrated, and I would recommend most people focus more on that. I do try to encourage our training program clients to that. So just as a side note, most of our clients are nutrition clients or almost nutrition only clients. And we do have a few clients that maybe like 10 to 20% of the nutrition clients that also utilize our training app. We have individualized or personalized or generalized training programs. And then we have a few select people that just do training with us. So if you're interested, head to the website and check out what we offer. We offer something anywhere between 3 to 5 days of strength training, anywhere for between hypertrophy or strength focus, or somewhere in terms of a hybrid approach. So yes, please hit us up if you have any questions, or even if you want us to do a personalized program for you. So moving on with my list of things, of over and underrated things. Again, this next one might fall more into the nutrition bucket, but I put it here with the training. And I actually think, again, like expensive electrolyte beverages are really overrated, especially at the moment. I know a lot of people that spend a lot of money on things like LMNT or similar. And I mean, truth be told, have you ever looked at the ingredients? Number one, LMNT, I don't know about all the others, but there are many like LMNT that have a really, really high sodium content. So, for instance, one sachet of LMNT has 1,000 milligrams of sodium. For an average person that doesn't sweat a lot, that doesn't live in a hot place, that is more than a third of their daily supposed sodium intake. So let's just say that person also consumes a diet that is a little bit more processed, enjoys even just like your deli ham or rotisserie chicken from time to time. There's a lot of sodium in those things too, or even in cheeses and so on. So add that up, you're probably consuming way too much sodium than what is necessary. On average, I would say probably the more other electrolyte drinks might have like half of that sodium content, but they often don't have sufficient amounts of the other electrolytes, which we should be more focusing on in our nutrition, like magnesium, like potassium. So eat more things like spinach, like almonds, like potatoes, like bananas, and bring that up more the natural way. Just salt your food, and you should be just fine. You don't need to spend $1 or $2 on a tiny little sachet once or twice a day. That adds up. Save your money for some higher quality omega-3 or for a higher quality magnesium supplement, which is harder to actually fill up that daily recommended intake, especially if you are active. So that is just one thing I do think is also very overrated. Now, another thing which I think is underrated is actually lifting belts and lifting straps. Why? Not necessarily because I think I want you to lift heavier through them, but more because it helps us isolate certain areas and not be limited in our load through other areas. So for example, with the deadlift, if you are kind of starting out and you do have a rather weak grip, yeah, I want you to work on your grip. I want you to do deadlifts without lifting straps. And I want you to do farmer's carry and pull-ups and all these things that strengthen your grip. Yes. But if we are doing the deadlift and at some point you are simply limited by the amount of grip strength that you have, then in some sets it's going to be useful using the lifting straps so that you can actually get the most or target your hamstrings and your glutes and your back the most, and not just your forearms, and you finish the exercise with burning forearms, but you don't feel anything in your hamstrings or your glutes or your back. So that is one example, and you can similarly transfer that over to the belt. I don't want you to use a lifting belt for literally everything, like when you're sitting on the leg extension machine, or when you're doing leg abductions, or even worse with upper body exercises. Most people don't need that. If you are a bikini athlete and you really, 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 really want to keep your core tiny or your waist tiny, and you're not worried about not building up core strength, which is so beneficial for overall health, then I would say that most people don't need to use a lifting belt for most upper body exercises. Maybe if you do a really, really heavy, shoulder press standing, something like that could be protective. But in most cases, I think the main application comes in when we're doing squats and when we're doing deadlifts. So in my example, if you are struggling to use your glutes to the best of their capability for squats, you never feel your glutes during your squats or even your deadlifts, utilizing a lifting belt can actually help you with that. Again, I'm speaking from personal experience, not saying everybody is like me or that what I'm feeling or have felt is what applies to everybody, but just saying it really helped me. I was over activating my core for nearly everything because CrossFit had taught me so, or I have falsely learned. My fault. I'm totally taking all the responsibility for it, but I just thought, always, always, always engage your core, but I didn't do it in the right way. I literally just engaged the core and didn't engage the other areas. So I would say lifting belt, lifting straps, and things like that, underrated. I'm not sure about wrist wraps. I don't think that they're that helpful, to be honest, unless you're an Olympic lifter, but most people probably benefit more from strengthening their grip strength there. Those are like the 3 aids that I can think of right now. Of course, there are other things like the mini bands around the knees that it really, really depends on the person and the application, if that is under or overrated. For example, I've been doing something strange, which probably looks insane to most people. I've been using the opposite of these tiny little bands for my squats as of recent. I have put a foam roller between my knees to squat in order to keep my knees together, not to keep them or to get them to cave in. That's not what I want. But I have noticed that I'm not actually using my hip flexor on one side very much and not my adductor either. So that has kind of led to me tilting my hip quite a bit and using something in between my knees. So doing the opposite of using a mini band like that has actually helped me with my squat form and just using my entire leg and not tilting to the one side. Okay, next point. Overrated once again, and that is, in my opinion, for most people, plyometric work. I used to love plyometric work, and actually I think it can be fun, but I don't think most people need to be doing it. I think it's too high of a risk of injury for most people. I think most people's form goes down the drain if they use it, and most people simply don't have the strength to execute it properly. For athletes, for explosive sports, amazing, really, really great application. But your Gen Pop, 40, 50-year-old person, or even my age, mid-30s, whatever, who works out 3 times per week and just wants to do it for longevity, do we really need to aim to do like plyometric push-ups or even jump squats or jump lunges. Yes, I mean, if you can work up to doing box jumps and then going into plyometric work from there. But even here, like, do we need to jump down from the box and have that eccentric risk? Really, for most people, probably not. So yeah, I think plyometric work can be great for athletes, for explosivity. If you're an Olympic athlete and you really want to work more on your power and your explosiveness, by all means incorporate it. But for general population, I do think that plyometric training is reasonably overrated. So that's kind of the list that I had put together for training. I will let you know if I can think of any others and add that to the nutrition one for the next week. Sorry, because next week we're going to be doing an over and underrated nutrition edition. I wanted to address two Q&As, I guess, or two questions I have received from someone here on YouTube after my last chat. And the first question is, I feel like it has literally nothing to do with the headline today, but I hope you guys don't mind if I address it anyway. So the question is, I feel like every time I eat carbs, I automatically gain 6 pounds. Is it possible my body really doesn't metabolize them well? I think that's a great question because I've actually heard that more often or several times when clients have a general fear of carbs. I personally used to believe carbs are inherently bad no matter what. Thankfully, I have learned better. So technically, yes, we can be more fat or carb adapted. Generally speaking, if you eat a diet higher in carbs, your body knows better how to use carbs as energy. If you eat a diet pretty low in carbs, you hardly ever eat carbs, your body is going to utilize fats a lot better than carbs. And that makes complete sense. Like if you think just like anything that we're used to, our body is used to, is habitual, those pathways in the body are going to be carved out much more smoothly than if it's something where it's like, oh, we need to kick into gear. Okay. That doesn't mean that somehow magically the energy that the carbs contain are going to be doubled or tripled or whatever and just automatically stored as body fat. That's not how physique works. Could it be possible that you simply feel more bloated eating carbs? Yes, because you're not used to them, or because you might have an intolerance against certain of them. Yes, that could be. Could it be that it really depends on what type of carbs we're talking about. Also, it could be that there's a difference between glutinous carbs and fibrous carbs, and whole food. You might be absolutely fine with carbs just from non-starchy vegetables and some fruit. We don't know. You hopefully are, so you can get those vitamins in you. You might be absolutely fine with rice, but not with potatoes. You might be absolutely fine with rice, but not with pizza. And then also, like, speaking about, things like pizza and such, there's always other things in play. It's not just that you're eating the pure carb here. It's not just the bread, right? There's also the cheese on there. You might also have a glass of wine with it. You might also have more olive oil drizzled over the pizza or whatever. So it's sometimes hard to pick out, is it really the carb that makes you feel like, oh, I'm bloated, I've automatically gained 6 pounds? Or is it water retention? Is it a food higher in sodium? All these things could be playing a role. So I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss it. If you feel like you gain a bunch of weight every single time you eat carbs, I would get inquisitive about what are you eating? Are you eating in isolation or in combination with other things or with alcohol or just too much in general? I would, number 2, get really accurate on the quantity that you're eating. I would, number 3, drink a lot of water with them and not necessarily rely on the scale the next day, but just how you're feeling. Because sometimes when we're quote unquote carving up, we actually feel better. Our muscles fill up more. We have more energy. But of course, as long as we're not going in a calorie surplus through them. So yes, that's point number 1. And then the second question I also wanted to address was, do you use diet breaks or cheat days with your clients? That's actually like almost a topic for an entire episode on its own. But We don't call them cheat days because I feel like it implies that you're quote unquote cheating on your diet, you're doing something wrong. And it also implies that there's an on and an off switch for we're on the diet, we're not. When in truth, a diet is just, everything that we're eating. And it's basically like a marriage. You can't cheat on it just because you're somewhere else. It still happened, or just because it's out of the ordinary, it still happened. So I don't like to use the word cheat day. I much rather say it's a refeed day or a higher calorie day, or you ate more than you intended, or a free meal or something like that. So with saying that, it's really person dependent. Some people love just having the same calorie prescription every single day. They don't actually like planning for a day higher in calories, or it makes them feel kind of like they have to be hungry on the other days. So that would be one person, but then other people say like, oh, I'm not that hungry during the week anyway, can I just have a higher calorie allowance for the weekend? So we do refeed days with them so that they are able to be more adherent when they want more calories. Every now and then, if someone's like, oh, I'm going to this wedding, I don't want to track there, or can I not track there, or however, then we just create like a calorie buffer and say, let's keep your breakfast light, have this and that, and make sure that when you're heading into this wedding, you have a calorie budget of, let's say, 1,200 or 300 left or so that you can enjoy the wedding in moderation, still mindful, but you don't need to record anything. So it's really, really person dependent, but I do not like the phrase of cheat days or cheat meal, even free meal, refeed days, diet breaks, something like that. Absolutely. Mostly for adherence purposes, but sometimes also to, refeed the body and give you a little bit more energy if sleep is crap, if stress is high, all these sorts of things. So yes, that was my over and underrated for training. Next week, we're going to do nutrition. As I said, I will be talking to you from a different location. Not entirely sure where yet. Stay tuned. If you want our Happy Healthy Holiday freebie, just look in the comments. I've linked the download below. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you have ever have any topic requests or so, please let me know below, or just in general your comments. Thank you.